What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Millie Maker Roundtable. Free this week, of course. Many of you RPS subscribers have been with us all previous 11 weeks, but I'm sure we got some new viewers today watching on YouTube, whether that's on the live show or on demand, all that good stuff. So thanks for joining us. I'm Draft Cheat, for those who don't know, joined today by Bobby and Snyder. As always, Bobby, what's going on, man?
Doing well. I just turned on the YouTube stream because we're free today, and I had the volume on, so I don't know if that was a great start to the show, kind of cutting into DC's intro, but we're ready to go. We're ready to talk some Week 12, I think it is, right? Correct? Am I wrong? Maybe Week
You got
11,
it.
Week 12.
You got it. Yeah, and don't worry. The intro was nothing special, nothing to ruin there. I think that the volume, in the background, no harm, no foul. Snyder, what's going on, man? Week 12, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Just got done watching the end of that Alabama-Auburn game. I mean, what a crazy game that was, and how dumb of a finish that was, making them guys go play for play on that 2-point conversion there at the end. That's got to be one of the dumbest rules I've ever seen, as they just changed that. I'm not sure when they did do it. They just had to have changed that this year, I'm guessing, but that's the first time I've seen an overtime game with those rules, and kind of such a shame to see those two teams have to come down to that, but it is what it is, and ready to break down this NFL slate now.
Yeah, crazy day of college football. I was on NBA duty today, so I don't get to watch, I don't watch all that much college football. I did catch some of the Ohio State Michigan game, which was a crazy one. It sounds like Auburn, Alabama, maybe even better. What's the rule? I saw everybody tweeting about it. I didn't actually see it go down. You get to like a certain point in overtime, you got to change the rules or something. Is that it?
Yeah, so after two overtimes and the third overtime rule, it's just basically a shootout. Then it's like 2-point conversions back and forth until one team doesn't get it. So they both got the 2-point conversions. I think the first time, and then the second time, I think it was Auburn didn't get it, and Auburn and Alabama got it. They won. They won by 2 points. That's got to have some weird deals with the Vegas spread too. I mean, you're only getting 2 points there. I mean, it's interesting for sure.
Yeah, I'm a big soccer fan, and that reminds me a little bit of like penalty kick shootouts, where really, like a penalty kick shootout like has nothing to do with like the flow of a normal soccer game. But you got to get to an end at some point. Bobby, did you watch the college football, and you have a take on that?
I'm not a college football guy. I didn't watch the Bama.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I enjoy it, but just can only do so many sports, so much football in your life. So with that, we'll get into Week 12. We are talking specifically the Millie Maker, specifically on DraftKings, but we'll talk kind of general thoughts on all these games. 10 games on the slate. Obviously, we had the 3-game slate on Thanksgiving. I hope I got a lot of my injuries out of the way on that one. Had some good teams brewing that got decimated by injuries. Hopefully, maybe I'll avoid the injury bug on the main slate. We got some really good games on the slate and some ugly ones too. We'll go by the DraftKings order of games. We'll go game by game, kind of break them all down, talk about any plays we like, game theory, all that good stuff that can hopefully help you guys get to the top, help you guys, or maybe one of us, get to the top of the Millie Maker on DraftKings. So with that, let's start off with a very, very ugly game between the New York Jets and Houston Texans. Certainly ugly in terms of the quality of football here, but I think at least interesting in terms of DFS, because you do have a 45 total, which is not, egregiously low by any means. And then you've got a lot of cheap players in this game. Texans favored by 2.5 points at home. We do know Zach Wilson going to get the start here, I guess, kind of out of necessity maybe for the Jets. I don't know. I mean, when's the last time he played? It's been since Week 7 that we saw him. Went down in that game Week 5 before he last played a full game. And then Tyrod Taylor on the other side. So 2 quarterbacks, obviously not the best QBs in the league, Snyder, but maybe guys that can do something with their legs against 2 bad defenses. You've got, of course, injuries, at all the positions. Most teams, there just seems like that they're that way. But Corey Davis, doubtful to play in this game for the Jets. You've got Michael Carter on IR. And you look at the weapons for, if you want to call them weapons for either of these quarterbacks, most of these guys, I think all of them are under 6K. I don't think there's a position player over 6K on either team. And then a lot of guys under 5, under 4. So, if there's going to be points scored in this game, probably there's going to be some value from some of these guys. Snyder, do you have any strong takes on Jets and Texans to start us off?
Yeah, for this game, I think Tyrod Taylor's going to see a decent amount of ownership. He's projecting as one of the top value quarterbacks on the slate. I don't have a problem with that as well. I can play that and stack it up with Brandon Cooks too. I think he's going to be another popular play. I mean, this week is an interesting slate here. I mean, we don't have any must-have stud plays, I don't feel, this week. We're missing quite a few playmakers this week. Some of the positions look a little thin off first look, so we got to dig a little deeper this week, and I think we can play Tyrod, Brandon Cook stack. If I was going to run it back, I'd be looking to my guy Elijah Moore, who I've been on a little bit more over the last couple of weeks. Last week, he found the end zone for the third straight week. That's now four touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. Had 11 targets last week, 8 catches, got the 100-yard bonus, and got in the end zone. So that he did really well for his price tag there, getting that 32 points. I don't know if he'll be able to do that again.
Yeah.
But I don't mind bringing it back with him. If I was going to bring it back, it'd be him for sure at 5,600. I mean, Jamison Crowder's another guy people will probably look at, but I don't think I'm going to go there this week. It's mainly in this game, it's going to be pretty short and sweet for me. It's going to be, if I play Tyrod, it's going to be with Cooks and bringing it back with Elijah Moore. And I don't mind the Texans defense either for punting down. I think the Texans defense are going to be one of the more popular defenses. There's a couple right at the bottom of the range that I like. I really don't like spending up for any defenses this week on DraftKings, especially. We've got two to three teams that are really solid, I think, at the bottom of the price range. So I'll be looking to cycle those defenses out.
Yeah, I think make a good point with the spending down in defenses. It does seem like a really good week for that. I assume most people are going to do that, so you'll see those guys or the cheap defenses lower owned. I mean, the Jaguars defense looks pretty decent to me. These defenses look okay, specifically the Texans at 2,300. Elijah Moore, I think, is a good call. My problem is a lot of this production has come, with obviously the last few weeks without Zach Wilson at the helm, and you just don't know, who Zach Wilson is going to be throwing to. He did target Elijah Moore a decent amount at the beginning of the year, but it seems like a long time ago now to know what Wilson's going to be doing. And I mean, Zach Wilson himself, it seems like the Jets are almost kind of starting him out of like a shoulder shrug scenario where they're like, I guess so, for a top 5 pick. I mean, they don't have a lot of confidence in him, understandably so. He looked pretty bad those first few weeks, but listen, a 45 total. I mean, 2 bad defenses. I guess you could see a shootout here. I was kind of surprised to see that total as high as it was. And if it hits 45, you're going to have guys that hit value in this game, 4X, 5X. I think that's almost inevitable if it does hit that total. So, Bobby, your thoughts here? I don't feel confident about anything, but I almost feel like if I don't have something from this game, I'll be missing out. So your thoughts here, Bobby?
Yeah, so in terms of construction, we don't have the big guys, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson on this slate. This seems more like one of those 2015, 2016 slates where you can make the case to pay down at QB. I wrote up Flacco last week in stacks.
Yeah.
In this case, I don't mind playing Tyrod and Cooks. I think that's a build that I think is fine. Definitely favorite play, and what I think will be the optimal defensive play is the Texans defense. Now, on the other side, Corey Davis is out. And like you said, DC, I think it's like a shoulder shrug to play Zach Wilson from the Jets organization. But I think you can make a case to play Zach Wilson, Elijah Moore, Jamison Crowder stacks, just because where and how this slate kind of breaks down. I know Zach Wilson's been absolutely terrible. We're talking about the Millie. We're talking about multiple QBs looking for value in terms of QBs just in the context of this slate. So I don't really mind either side of this game. And it's not more because I think this is a great game, but more because I think the slate sucks. And we're just trying to find I think it calls for lower value at the QB position, pretty much.
Yeah, to me, this is one of those games where it seems like, if they both score on their opening drive, right, or even field goals, and the offenses get going a little bit, you could see maybe these quarterbacks kind of go back and forth. You could also see the opposite, where neither team can move the ball despite the bad defenses and the quarterbacks struggle. It's just these two teams are just really, really hard to predict. They're both obviously awful teams and riddled by injury and quarterbacks in and out of the lineups and all that stuff. So it's tough to predict. These types of games, right, where we don't have a lot of data on the quarterbacks playing with these wide receivers or these running backs, these are the games where I tend to trust the market a little bit and see that 45 total and say, that's predicting a 24-21 game. If this game ends 24-21, again, there's going to be players that reach value. I think I'm with you, Bobby. My favorite being the Tyrod to Cooks stack, right? At least in that instance, we have some data on Tyrod putting up big games in the past. He has many times in his career, including, last week he was fine. And Cooks obviously is a pretty talented wide receiver. I mean, maybe you put Elijah Moore in that bucket, but I think clearly the most kind of skilled, established position player here. Problem is Tyrod just doesn't. They like to limit his pass attempts, right? So
yeah, that is an issue.
It is. It really is. The running backs in this game, man, it's like the Texans ones. I don't think you can play any of them, right? It looks like a three-headed. I don't even want to call it a three-headed monster. The three-headed dud of a running back room from the Texans and then from the Jets. You've got Michael Carter out, who's kind of establishing himself as the number one guy. But who's it going to be? I mean, Ty Johnson and Tevin Coleman. It just gets really ugly there. Where I don't feel. Go ahead, Senator.
I forgot about Ty Johnson being in there. I don't mind going to him. I think he's a guy that'll probably get you a median projection of. I think he'll be like in between that 10 to 13 point range. But he has shown the ability to catch the ball in the backfield. 2 games ago, he had 5 catches, and then against the Bengals a few weeks back, he also had 5 catches. So I think he's got catching ability out of the backfield, and if he can break one, I think he can get you to that 20-point mark, which we will need for like GPPs. But I think he's all right play at this price tag. I think he's gonna project pretty well. He might not see too much ownership, maybe around that 10% range, I think. But I think he's solid play this week.
The issue is Mike White was the QB for the Cincy game, and then 2 weeks ago where he was just repetitively checking down to these running backs, and you wonder if Zach Wilson really didn't show like that being a trade of something he'd do as often as Mike White. And then you have to take into consideration the dual backfield becomes kind of thin.
For what I've seen with Zach Wilson, I mean, Wilson looked really, really lost in those first 5 weeks. Listen, he's a rookie.
Maybe he'll want to check some more balls down. I mean, it's just an option if you're looking to stack up some of these higher total games or some more key guys and the receivers and such. It just helps spend down there.
Yeah, I mean, he's had 6 to 7 weeks, since we've seen him significantly, and maybe he's learned the offense a little bit better. They've got maybe a better plan for him. We'll see. But hard to feel confident in plays in this game. That said, they're also cheap, relatively, moderate total. That there probably will be some plays in the Jets and Texans game that do get there in the end. So don't completely write it off despite 2 struggling teams and franchises. Next game, we'll talk about Carolina and Miami. This one has actually a significantly lower total than the Texans game. 41.5 here, I believe the lowest total on the slate. Panthers favored by 2 going on the road to Miami. Obviously, we saw the return of Cam Newton last week. He looked, I don't know, like Cam Newton, I guess, in that game. 10 rushing attempts, including a lot of, these weren't scrambles. These were like bootlegs that they were running him out on. Like they're clearly going to get Cam Newton's legs involved. You saw Christian McCaffrey kind of back to Cam Newton CMC, right? Playing 90% of the snaps, 8 targets. What do you have on the ground? 10 rush attempts. I would expect more than that, certainly in this game against the Dolphins. And then on the other side, from the Dolphins, you've got Tua, who I'm not a huge believer in, honestly. You've got Myles Gaskin. They've been riddled by injuries on the wide receiver front. Parker, Will Fuller on IR. It seems like Jalen Waddle is going to be the guy that Tua continues to lean on. I think he's a little bit interesting at 5,900, Bobby. So this game is one where, again, you got a lot of cheap players, except for CMC. 41.5 total. How much does that take you off CMC? Do we know where his ownership's going to end up at? Because, back in the CMC that we saw with Cam Newton put up a lot of fantasy points back in the day, and kind of seems like they got that mojo going on again. So, Bobby, your thoughts on CMC and anything else on this game as well, of course.
He should be relatively chalky. I think he'll hit most optimals for most cash game players. I'm very just play CMC. What is he, 9K? It seems like just an easy play for me to just plug and play CMC. I think Cam Newton's going to be the guy that a lot of people go to in cash. And higher stake stuff, maybe you can leverage that playing guys around him or paying up at quarterback if he's going to be owning higher stake stuff. In terms of tournaments, I just don't play Cam Newton. Should have played him last week, but I did play Heineke, so I wasn't too upset about it on the other side. So, yeah, outside of that, Waddle I would have some interest in. I think Carolina D makes some sense as well. The game is in Miami, though. No, it's in Miami, so – yeah, in terms of the Tua side, maybe there's flop lag there, but I just don't know what to do with Tua. I know Gaskin's popping for a lot of people. I think I'd just rather play Henderson, to be honest, for 200 more. Darrell Henderson. Outside of that, Christian McCaffrey is probably my favorite play, and yeah, not really much for me, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to approach it. CMC, hard to go wrong with him here. He's just going to be so involved in the offense. He's racking fantasy points up all game long. The Panthers pass catchers outside of CMC, I mean, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, those guys are basically off the board for Snyder. I just don't want – it's going to be Cam Newton. It's going to be CMC through the ground, through the air. I just don't see enough volume for those guys to really get there. Of course – DJ Moore could catch 2 slants to the house, but you're just drawn so thin there at 6,200, at least the way I see it. Same thing with Robbie Anderson. And then Panthers have a good defense. Didn't show up necessarily last week against the football team, but certainly could here against Tua and the Dolphins. So your thoughts here, Snyder, on the Dolphins and the Panthers?
Yeah, for the Dolphins, for me, I'll start there. Tua was ultra on point last week, completed 81% of his passes last week. I mean, I just haven't seen the upside of this Dolphins defense, and now they're coming against a pretty good stout passing defense in the Carolina Panthers. So I think this is a tough matchup for Miami here. That's why we're kind of seeing that low total. I think this is going to be more of a defensive battle personally. I know Cam Newton's going to be a popular cash type, single entry type guy. Pretty good price tag with him. FanDuel did raise this price up quite a bit, but DraftKings left him right in that mid 5K range, which I think is solid. I mean, we saw he helped DJ Moore. He completed 21 of 27 passes last week. Looked to be getting back in the sync. I do kind of worry about CMC's rushing upside with Cam Newton taking over some of these goal line opportunities, but I think CMC is a great option this week. He's going to be involved in both the passing and rushing game. I think we know what his ceiling is, and he's I think he's probably going to be the most, he's got the most upside on this slate this week, and he's got the highest median projection. I think he's solid there at 9.0K. I mean, we've seen him, up close to 10K, and we've been paying that price tag. Yeah. I mean, we're getting a pretty good price tag on him. DJ Moore, it's a little priced up a little too much for me in this matchup at 6.2. For me, it's just mainly going to be CMC and then maybe run some Cam. But I think I probably would play Cam naked even in this spot. I'm not seeing too much I like with him besides DJ Moore. I mean, we got Mike Gesicki at 5.3K, but I just worry about this upside in this game for shooting out. I think it's going to be kind of like a slog where we'll see like a 17-13 type game even possibly, or 21-17 type game here. So I don't have too much for GPP upside wise here, but I think CMC and Cam Newton are going to be solid for you, like your cash type plays and such.
Are you willing to play those guys together, Cam and CMC?
I think they're going to be together a lot in like cash and single entry type deals, but in GPPs, I don't think I would play them together in like your larger field type stuff.
Obviously, Cam could throw the touchdown to CMC, but you know, you get down inside the 5 there, that gets less likely to happen. And at that point, you know, one of them, if they score, it's probably going to be on the ground from either or, you know, one of the two, not through the air. So I get that. I get separating them. If you're playing a number of tournaments, maybe you have them together on some. But I think I'm with you, Snyder. The prudent move, at least from where I'm sitting, is to separate CMC and Cam Newton, at least for GPPs. Obviously, cash games doesn't really matter, right? You're just trying to put in what you think is the optimal lineup overall. You're not really worried about the upside or the correlation too much.
These are two of my favorite defenses too. To kind of get a little contrarian, as many of the people are going to be paying down for defense. Both these defenses are right at that high 2K, low 3K range. I think both these defenses have upside to score 15 plus in this game, like they've both shown here in the past.
Yeah, I definitely prefer the Carolina defense over the Miami defense. I think they're the better defense overall. And then I just, you know, I don't know how many drop back pass attempts we're going to see for Cam Newton, where he's like throwing into spots where he could get, you know, pick six, that kind of thing. Whereas Tua, I could see that happening more often. So I hear you on that. I do prefer the Carolina defense. McCaffrey looks like a great play. No problem with Cam Newton, obviously, but probably mostly sticking to that. Bobby, any final thoughts here on this one?
No, CMC for me and pretty much a pass.
All right, let's get to a third pretty ugly game in a row here. The Atlanta Falcons and the Jacksonville Jaguars. You don't oftentimes see, you know, three of this type of ugly game in a row, but we'll get to some good ones shortly. I don't think this one's a dead one from a DFS perspective. Reminds me a little bit of the first game we talked about in the Texans and the Jets, where it's like, man, you don't really trust these players, but could be some fantasy goodness nevertheless. Falcons actually 2-point favorites going on the road here to Jacksonville, 45.5 total. So very similar type of total to the Jets Texans game, and then type of spread as well. Bobby, we'll let you start on this one. Falcons, Jaguars. What do you see?
Yeah, I'm usually off most Atlanta Falcons guys. Kyle Pitts and Cordell Patterson, like I feel like I could get to them, especially if I'm going to get off some of this chalk. And then on the Jag side, like I don't mind Trevor Lawrence stacks. They're talking about playing him more like they used him in college, which is more rushing equity. And that obviously is beneficial to daily fantasy and DraftKings scoring. So I don't mind him. Dan Arnold's not going to be played too much at 4K. I think he's interesting. Like everyone's going to go to Gronk. They're going to go to Goddard. They're going to go to Freiermuth, but they're not going to go to Arnold. So I don't mind playing him. And then Laviska, like I'm not playing. I would much rather play Arnold than Laviska. But a lot of people are going to play Laviska tomorrow, and please do it with caution. I just don't have a good read or a take on Laviska. James Robinson, he's going to be very chalky. I think it's good chalk though, but
yeah, you
kind of have to sift through it. He'd be the one running back that I have like pretty good feel for. Like I don't mind James Robinson chalk, but maybe I should be more worrisome. I don't know. What do you think, DC?
Yeah, I'm in on James Robinson, 6,200 on DraftKings. He hasn't gotten like a massive snap share. If you look at the last couple of weeks with Carlos Hyde is cutting in there for 20-30% of snaps, but they don't even use Carlos Hyde, right? He's gotten like just a couple touches in the last couple of weeks. So it seems like they want to use, you know, if they actually want to use a running back, it's James Robinson that they're using on the field. I think, I don't know, these two teams are, I wouldn't say they're desperate for wins because you're kind of getting to the point of the season where it's like maybe we kind of want to lose games. But I mean, I think Urban Meyer wants to win games. That he doesn't necessarily always coach like it, but listen, Atlanta's rush defense is awful. To me, Jacksonville wants this game more than Atlanta does. just from the coaching perspectives, the players' perspectives. You got Trevor Lawrence. You already got your number one pick. I kind of think you're going out there trying to win. It should be a lot of James Robinson, right? He should get 20-plus touches here. And it's not like he's dusty or he's inefficient. I mean, he's averaging over 5 yards a carry on the season. Backup is Carlos Hyde. Atlanta ranks near the bottom or at the bottom of the league in most rushing statistics or grades, whatever you want to look at. So Robinson to play here. Snyder, we talked about, cheap defenses being in play. The Jaguars coming in as the cheapest defense, 2,200 at home against the Falcons. I want to go there. I don't really want to play the chalky defense, but I have less issue playing the chalky defense when they're the lowest price defense, right? Then it becomes a little bit more palatable for me. So your thoughts here, Jaguars, Falcons, specifically James Robinson and this defense, and of course wherever else you're looking.
Yeah, I'm going to make it 3 for 3 on James Robinson here. The Falcons, 6 of the last 7 games, the Falcons have given up 26 or more points to opposing running backs. So I think James Robinson's in a really good spot here. I do worry a little bit about Laviska Shenault. We've heard some talk about coach speak about how they're going to try and get him more involved here with the injuries to the guys suffered last week. And I think we need to proceed with caution here. They're talking about maybe getting him the ball out of the backfield at times, even possibly. I just don't trust Urban Meyer. I don't think he really likes Laviska Shenault, and I think that one guy that we can trust mainly here is James Robinson. I mean, we could also look to Dan Arnold here at 4K. That 4K in that price range looks to be pretty. There's some good targets in that range for tight end this week. I think Dan Arnold makes a really good case to be right there too. He's a guy that'll probably get you 10 to 15 points, I think, on average. At running back for the Falcons, Cordell Patterson, I think he's fine, but 6.5K is a little too much for me, as he's only shown the ability to get over 20 points a couple times this year. I mean, I think he's a guy that's going to probably be in that 14 to 17 point median outcome more than not. So I just don't know if I can pay the price tag for that, especially in tournaments here. I do like going to that Jacksonville defense. 2.2K is cheap, and it allows you to spend up in some other spots. I think this is a really good spot. We got a bad Falcons team going on the road here to Florida. Are their heads going to be in it? I mean, they might be here to enjoy the weather more than to even play. I mean, this Jaguars defense scored 17 points a few weeks ago. I think they could come through with another strong game here.
Yeah, I like the Jaguars side in this one. I'm kind of on that. Yeah, James Robinson, I mean, one of my favorite running backs on the slate, as you mentioned, Bobby. And then the Jaguars defense seems like the best, to me, point per dollar play. Just this Falcons team, I mean, it's just been a struggle for them. They've been kind of on the downhill anyway. Obviously, traded away Julio Jones, and you got Calvin Ridley sitting out the season, it seems like. Injuries. We don't even know if Patterson's going to play in this game. I mean, it kind of says a lot. I know Patterson's been good, but it kind of says something to me about this team that they've kind of employed him as who's been their best player, right? Cordell Patterson, and that says something. And then you don't even know if he's going to be available to play in this game. Mike Davis hasn't played well. I just don't like Atlanta. Give me some Jaguars. Give me them to win this game going away. Give me the defense. Give me James Robinson, and I'll kind of go from there. I'm not playing either quarterback. Kyle Pitts, I have no problem with that, right? If you want to go in that direction. But I've seen some numbers. He does much better when he's lined up like as a tight end instead of having, because then he gets matched up with the safety or a linebacker instead of the cornerback. Problem is they're just so short on wide receivers that you got to kind of split them out wide because, you can put in another tight end there. So I'll give you final thoughts here, Bobby, on Atlanta and Jacksonville.
Yeah, I think it's James Robinson. I think if Patterson plays, is an interesting pivot for off some of these chalk running backs, maybe James Robinson, but pretty much on the James Robinson train. And I like Dan Arnold. Jacksonville D, I think Houston's going to be the chalkiest D. So I think Jacksonville D is fine.
Yeah.
They're going to be 1 and 2, but I think Houston will be the 1.
Okay. Yeah, I actually prefer it's close, but I guess I'll take Jacksonville D slightly over Houston. But yeah, I do like both defenses. I was surprised to see Atlanta favored in this game, to be honest.
Me too, man. Me too.
Yeah. I don't know what to think about that, but I guess I'll go the opposite way. I'll go with my gut and say Jacksonville pulls this one out. So that's 3 games. We got Jets, Texans, Panthers,
tough slate.
Falcons, and Jaguars out of the way. Listen. DraftKings made the order of games. I didn't make it myself. Good to get them out of the way. We still got 7 more games to talk about. If you're enjoying the show, hit the like, hit the subscribe. It does help us here at Run Pure Sports bring you guys all the free content that we do. If you're just a football fan, tune in tomorrow morning. We've got tons of free shows coming your way. Of course, the show with Big T, Hoop, all those guys. But we got plenty of shows on the Run Pure Sports channel on YouTube for free on Sunday morning. And then we have a free NBA show pretty much 4 or 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And yeah, check that out as well. So hit the like on the show, hit the subscribe. I believe it's at the bottom right corner, and you won't miss any of our free content. Of course, if you want to join us as a premium member over at runpuresports.com, I believe the promo code, correct me if I'm wrong, either of you two, RPS Heater 25. Is that still what we're using?
I believe so, yeah.
Not my strong suit. I should have looked it up before the show, but yeah, join us. And one price, all sports. We're constantly adding new content providers, new articles, shows. Discord is fantastic, so all that good stuff. Join us over at runpuresports.com. All right, let's move to some better teams. 2 way better teams: the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Indianapolis Colts. Very high total in this one, 53.5. I believe the highest total on the day. Colts 3-point underdogs with the Buccaneers coming to town. You guys know about the Bucs. Tom Brady doing his thing, producing another monster season on his way to perhaps another MVP year. In terms of news and notes, we do have Antonio Brown missing another game, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin going to lead the way at the wide receiver core for the Bucs. And then you have Rob Gronkowski, who did return last week after missing, what did he miss? 2-3 weeks there, but did get 8 targets, 71 yards last week. He's interesting at 4,400. I actually think tight end is kind of that mid to low range tight end. Looks pretty strong to me this week. Gronkowski certainly in that pool. And then the Colts, they have coming off incredible game from incredible season, but incredible game, of course, from Jonathan Taylor. 5 touchdowns, 56.4 DraftKings points against the Bills in Buffalo for Jonathan Taylor last week. Kind of gets almost like a little bit of a similar matchup here. Very, very tough run defense from the Bucs. I'm anticipating. I had Jonathan Taylor last week. He's in my article. He's on my main team. Unfortunately, had a Chiefs Cowboys stack with him, which was not fun. But I'm kind of anticipating the Colts going through the air here. Of course, they're going to involve Jonathan Taylor, but Carson Wentz is intriguing to me. Michael Pittman. They haven't had to do a lot these last couple of weeks, but I think that's going to be different here. I also like this game is indoors, right? Like weather kind of turning throughout a lot of the country. I think that contributes to the total. So yeah, I'm kind of expecting a shootout here, Snyder. I haven't been the biggest Wentz guy these last couple of years, including this year. Obviously, Big T, a huge Wentz fan, but I kind of like the spot for him here. So might be buying into some Colts. Go ahead, Snyder, on Colts and Bucs.
Yeah, I mean, Big T's guy, Carson Wentz, had a few good games to go, but the last couple of weeks it's been pretty rough for his guy there. But, I mean, this is a great spot. I mean, Tampa's secondary has been definitely attackable this whole season. I mean, if he can't get it done in this spot, I mean, it's got a great spot. Good team total. I do like both sides in this game. I do like, for Tampa Bay, the receivers, I do like Mike Evans a little bit more than Godwin. It looks like Godwin's going to be quite a bit higher owned. I mean, we can get Mike Evans at about a third the ownership, I think. And the Colts have shown some bad deal. They can't defend the perimeter receivers as well this year. So I think Mike Evans should be able to attack this defense well. I do like Chris Godwin some. I think Godwin's going to be more like the cash type guy, and Evans is a way to get leverage off that in GPPs. Rob Gronkowski is going to be pretty popular too. He's another one of those 4.4 guys there. Alex Hahn talked about him in chat there. I think he's in a good spot here. He looked like to be the old Gronk here. Eight targets, 6 catches last week. Looked to be in good shape. They're coming back.
He's looked good when he's on the field, man. I mean, he missed a few weeks, but it seemed like they were pretty cautious with him. I think he's kind of a full go right here. So I don't really popular, but I like Gronk a lot here.
Yeah, for the running back side, I could see playing like some Leonard Fournette more so on FanDuel. I think he's fine on DK. I mean, he's going to see probably around 10% ownership range, and he's a fine person to add to your maybe add to your Colts stacks. I mean, if Tampa Bay gets up to a big lead here, you might see some Leonard Fournette, and you can bring that back with the Colts stack and approach it that way. So, I mean, Jonathan Taylor just absolutely destroyed the slate last week, and nobody was on him, but Tampa Bay has one of the best rush defenses, and I typically don't like to target any running backs against these guys, so I'll probably be off Jonathan Taylor. But I really like the spot for Michael Pittman here. He's still cheap. I mean, he's 5.6K. Yeah. I still like his target volume. He's good. I think he's a great play this week. Coming off a bad game, but he's shown that upside a few weeks back, and I think he's a great play in this spot. If you're going to play that win stack, I'm looking to go with Pittman firmly with that, and then run it back with either Godwin or Evans. But majority, for tournaments, I'm looking to go Brady, Evans. You can go double stack with Brady too. I think that's firmly in play. I would go one of Gronk or Godwin there. You can run many different stacks, just cycling through those 3 guys if you want to do some doubles and run it back with Pittman. But I think that's about it for me here. I'm going to give Carson Wentz another run this week. 5.8K is too cheap in this good of a scenario, I think. Yeah. So I like this game quite a bit for GPPs and all around.
Yeah. Wentz pretty cheap, right? You said like 5,800. Last week, I mean, I'm giving Wentz and Pittman just a complete – like what? You're on the road in Buffalo against one of the best teams in the league, and Jonathan Taylor is getting 6-7 yards. I mean, I had Taylor, so I was watching that game closely, and it was like, given his bad runs, were like 3 or 4 yards. Buffalo was missing their defensive tackle and middle linebacker, which I think played a big role in that. Listen, I love Taylor, but I think coming out that game, now he's priced to 9,100. I'll be off him this week, Bobby, and going to the passing game here. I mean, Pittman to me is he's kind of proven himself as like a legit number 1 guy. 5,600. There's not very many people in that price range where I think he's got, a realistic shot at being the top wide receiver on the week, right? If he caught 8 balls for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns, would that shock you? No, of course not. And at that price point and the potential shootout, I love Pittman here. Clearly the guy you want with Wentz, right? I mean, I'm all for getting off kind of the popular QB wide receiver pairing, but in this case, Pittman's clearly the number 1 for Wentz. So he's the guy I want. That's the stack I want in this game. And then, I mean, give me Evans or Godwin or Gronk. 2 of them if you want. Problem is, I talk about this a lot. Brady, most expensive QB on the board. Both Godwin and Evans are over 7K. When you get to that point, right, when you're trying to stack 3 guys that are all over 7K, like you need everything to go through those 2 guys. I just don't know if you'll get that. So I prefer to go maybe a Brady to Gronk and then one of the wide receivers, or maybe just Gronk himself. But yeah, Bobby, your thoughts here? Tampa Bay, Indianapolis, obviously a game we need to try to get right. 53.5 total here.
Yeah, I just had some water go down the wrong chute, but I'm going to try to get this out here. Yeah, I like both sides for the stacks, like Wentz, Pittman. I think Pittman and Cooks will be our guys in cash. Like people are going to be flipping between those 2 as like which one they want to actually play. Godwin seems like he'll be relatively chalky in that sense. I like Pittman. Colts have been beat by perimeter receivers more than slot guys, so I think that makes sense. Gronkowski's a really good play this week. That is number 4-4. He's destroyed the Colts in the past. I think the interesting leverage play is Leonard Fournette, though, at 6'8". Colts play a lot of cover 2. Brady sees cover 2. Unlike Mahomes and Josh Allen, he just runs the football. So yeah. I like Leonard Fournette in this situation, even at the higher price tag, especially because a lot of these value running backs aren't the greatest. Yeah, and then Jonathan Taylor, they want to run the football, so I get like even playing like this would be a slate. Yeah, it's you could consider it chasing, but there's the value at running back like isn't great. So I think having exposure to Jonathan Taylor makes sense. Like if you're running 150, I don't know if I'd be getting there in 3 max, but just with the lack of value, I think that playing him isn't the worst idea. Like he's looks like the best running back in the league right now. So, and it seems like that's what they want to do, right?
Yeah, it really does. I mean, they're gonna like if it's working. They've kind of shown the last couple of weeks, especially last week. They'll continue to do it. So, great offensive line, fantastic back with explosive speed. Who's to say it won't work again? I mean, I'm not going there, but I have no problem, no issue at all going back to Jonathan Taylor. I'm going to be on the Wentz to Pittman train with some Gronk, maybe mixing in Godwin and Evans. But, last week I was kind of astonished to see Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he was 2.5% owned in the Wildcat. I assume he'll be, even with the, $800 price bump from last week. I think it was $8,300 last week. I bet it'll be higher owned than that, 2.5%, I think. But I don't know. I mean,
I don't think he's going to break 10%.
Yeah. Well,
he might
even at 7.5%, he's 3 times as owned as he was last week. Yeah. I just think it was a low total, and the fact that they were, kind of fairly big underdogs. But yeah, no problem with Taylor. If you're playing Taylor, though, that's like the only guy in the game I'm playing, right? Because that just basically saying this game is just going to be flipped on what everybody says, because everybody's going to the passing games here. And listen, if Taylor's rushing off for 5-6 yards a pop like he was last week, Colts aren't going to throw the ball. Why would they? So and then that's going to kill the game, and could go that way. You never know in an NFL game. So Snyder, final thoughts here: Bucks and Colts.
Yeah, I like what you said there about Jonathan Taylor. I don't see him being. I think he's going to come in like right around 10% or so.
I bet lower than 10, given that he was only 2.5 and he got a price bump. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to run that, I would definitely play Taylor, and then I would even look at maybe playing both Godwin and Evans, as Tampa Bay would probably be in a more of a catch-up pace in that scenario. So maybe that's a low owned stack type, little pairing type deal there. But for me in this game, it's just basically going to come down to which guys I want to pair up with Brady. I mean, Wentz too. If you want to do it for cheaper, you could do that Wentz, Pittman, and then pick 2 Tampa Bay guys, even possibly there to get exposure to Brady at a cheaper cost. But I definitely like this game. I think it's going to be one of the more better game stacks we have this week. It should probably see some ownership, but I don't think it's going to see terribly as much as outside of 3 guys. I mean, the 3 guys that are going to be probably 20% or more is going to be the Godwin, the Pittman, and probably Gronk. I think Gronk is going to approach 20%, but rightfully so. I would be looking to definitely try and get Evans in my game stack. So in this, it looks like he's going to be at around 7 to 10% ownership.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. Again, the game you can certainly stack up if you want to. I think a fair amount of people will do that, but it does get expensive on the Tampa Bay side, especially. It's kind of why I prefer the Wentz to Pittman stack myself. We'll keep it moving. Philadelphia and the New York Giants. Decent total in this one for sure. 45 total. I guess a little bit low. Eagles 4-point favorites going on the road. Jalen Hurts, I think I saw he's the at least in terms of, I think, fantasy points per game, I think he's number 1 or number 2, maybe behind Brady, but way up there, or at least a fantasy QB1 for sure. 7,300 this week feels like a lot going on the road, but he's proven big upside with that rushing ability. Daniel Jones, of course, on the other side. You've got Saquon Barkley, who returned from injury last week against Tampa. He was okay. He catch 6 balls, rushed for 25 yards. Questionable to play in this game. I would assume he'll be in there, and would assume he'll get even more work if he is. So he's a little bit interesting to me. I mean, Saquon Barkley at 6,300. I'm a Barkley fan, but probably not the player he once was. I think that's probably safe to say. Giants have been riddled by injury all year long. They'll be missing, looks like, well, for sure Sterling Shepard, probably Kadarius Toney. He's listed doubtful for this game. You rarely see players play when they're doubtful. That'll leave the Giants with guys like Galladay, Darius Slayton, John Ross questionable to play, but yeah, mostly Slayton and Galladay, kind of the two I'm looking at. Kyle Rudolph is out, should leave Evan Engram with roughly close to 100% snap share for Engram. And then on the Eagles side, Dallas Goedert, basically been a 100% snap share guy since they traded Zach Ertz. Got knocked out from concussion in Week 10, but 6 and 8 targets in the two games, sandwiching that one. So, Bobby, I don't know. I mean, this one, a tough one to call. Miles Sanders, I should have mentioned him. He's back in the fold. What is he? 16 carries in his return, 94 yards against the Saints. Impressive performance there. I think he's a little bit interesting. So I could see making a case for a number of guys in this game. I don't see anyone that I feel like I need to play or need to fade or anything like that. Kind of a game where I feel a little bit lost. So set me straight, Bobby. What are you seeing in Philly and New York?
Yeah, so the two calls on, I actually don't mind Daniel Jones, Slayton, Galladay stacks. It'll be tough for me to pull the trigger on Evan Engram, but he is going to see 100% of the snaps. He's 3,900. I probably won't play him, but he should grade out as a good play, but he's likely a bad play. So I would lean to the side of not playing Evan Engram. But I like the Daniel Jones, Galladay, Slayton stacks. Saquon, 6,300, right above 6,200, chalk James Robinson. I'm with you. I don't think Saquon is the guy that he once was, but on this slate, like, it's an interesting decision point in tournaments if you want to play the Saquon route and maybe get off Robinson. And I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but I think that it's interesting that we've paid $8K for Saquon. You know what I mean? He's 6,300.
I mean, he was a 10K back in his rookie season, I think.
Yeah, 10K back. Like, yeah. The issue is they're saying he's still a little banged up, so we don't know what the full workload is. Sanders at 5K is going to be egregiously chalky. Now, do you play chalk Sanders? Like in cash, higher stake stuff, you have to consider it. In large field tournaments, I'm probably going a different route. I'd rather play like a 5K or a 4-9 receiver and try to get up to a running back I think is more safer. Jordan Howard isn't playing this week, so that's a good thing. They do want to give Sanders the ball, but they said that all season. And like they were still working in Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell. They're not currently working in Kenneth Gainwell, but Boston Scott's there. I just have a bad taste in my mouth for Sanders. If he's chalk,
has he ever come through as big chalk? Like,
I don't think he's ever come through.
Busted every time. Doesn't catch passes really. Yeah.
So the other side of that is let's just play Jalen Hurts, Goddard, and Devontae Smith and fade Sanders. Like, I think that would be the route for me. I think those guys are pretty interesting. Goddard's great tight end, seeing a ton of usage. Devontae Smith is just on fire. It's hard to get away from him, and he's big play potential every time he touches the ball. So really like Devontae Smith a ton. This game, like, this slate sucks, guys. There's not like a ton to like really get into, but this is what we're talking about as like a good play. It's like the Eagles and Giants game, which is
I love Devontae Smith as a player. 4 weeks in a row now, hasn't seen over 6 targets in any of them. Makes you a little bit nervous. I mean, Hurts, obviously, his ability just to kind of, rack up yardage passing, I think, is a little bit in question outside of garbage time, which I don't know if we're going to get here. So, like, double stacking Hurts makes me a little bit nervous. I think I've done it in the past, and I just don't know. If you're getting 25, 30 pass attempts a game, is it really enough for 2 guys to get there? So I think I prefer to choose between Goddard and Smith, and then we typically lean the cheaper guy with Goddard. Obviously, Smith has more upside, per target, but I just don't know if there's enough meat on the bone there, Snyder, to go around for both guys. How do you see Giants and Philadelphia?
Yeah, I think there's some good plays in this game. I wouldn't say there's any great plays or any guys I'm actively targeting in this game. I mean, you got Jalen Hurts there. He's got that big rushing upside, but we haven't really seen anything from the passing side. I mean, you're basically playing and hoping he gets 1 or 2 rushing touchdowns. I mean, he's only completed 13, 16, 11, and 9 passes in the last 4 games, so that passing upside just isn't there for him. Don't mind the Daniel Jones call. I mean, I could see that in GPPs for sure. Miles Sanders is definitely going to be a chalky play here, a 5.1K. I mean, like you said, I don't think we've ever seen him like really explode or show that upside that I think he's going to be needed here. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to get you 10 to 14 points or somewhere in that range this week. I mean, you do have to worry about Jalen Hurts still on that goal line rushing ability from him. So I think that cuts away at his equity. Saquon's all right. I mean, I could get there if I had to in tournaments. In tournaments, if I was going to target one of these Giants guys, it'd probably be Darius Slayton. I think he's got the biggest upside of any of these guys, and he could stretch the field for a deep play and get you like a 50, 60-yard touchdown at times. For tight ends here, I mean, Goddard's all right. I mean, you could target him. I don't mind that price tag of 4.8K. I mean, it just comes down to the Hurts passing equity just really isn't there, I don't think. And Evan Ingram, I was hoping to get Ingram at a little cheaper price tag, but 3.8 is fine for GPPs, I think, here, as he's going to be seeing all the work here. I mean, from a talent standpoint, I mean, he's definitely way better than 3.8K from a talent standpoint, but the problem is I don't know if the upside's really there for him. I could see him scoring like 15 points or something, but I don't think the cards are really there for him to have that 20 to 25 point blow-up game that you'll need in some of these high-field GPPs, but all in all, it's just good plays in this game. Not great.
Right on Hurts with his passing total, his passing props 203. I didn't really realize that. So.
Yeah, hard to stack him with 2 guys, especially when they're not that cheap, right? Neither Goddard nor Smith is super cheap. Yeah. So I prefer single stacking Hurts, or even playing him naked, I think is a fun way to go. Although I do think most of the passing offense will run through those guys. I mean, the running backs not super involved in the passing game, and neither are the periphery wide receivers. So either Goddard or Smith, I think, is fine. But personally wouldn't go with both. To me, just the most interesting play is Saquon. I mean, you know, maybe he's good to go here. Listen, I know he's questionable to play in the game. I think he will play. It's an ankle injury. He took a lot of time off, got a decent amount of workload last week, and I thought decent. So he's kind of the guy.
The price tag for his upside is unreal, I think, in this spot. I mean,
I say this a lot, but sometimes, you know, the game starts and breaks off a big run early and he's feeling good, and they're just like, all right, you know, you're good to go. You're playing 80%, 90%. Not that they would say that, but that's just what happens. You know, when your backup is Devontae Booker, like, and you're playing well, you're at home, you got a chance to win. Maybe they lean on Saquon. So I do like him a little bit at 6,300, talking myself a little bit into some Saquon exposure. That's Philly, and that's the Giants. Let's move to, another injury-riddled team on offense, especially the Tennessee Titans. I haven't seen a team this decimated by injury in some time. If you're following along on DraftKings, clicking on the positions or whatever, A.J. Brown to IR. Is that today that they announced that? I think it was today that they announced A.J. Brown to IR. Joins Julio Jones on IR. Joins Derrick Henry on IR. Jeremy McNichols, who was Henry's backup, is also on IR. Darrington Evans, who was initially Henry's backup, was put on IR, I think, after the first game of the season, I believe. So that leaves for the Titans, basically Donta Foreman, two guys who were out of the league. Donta Foreman and Dontrell Hilliard split the running back snaps last week. I like Hilliard quite a bit. We'll talk about him. He's 4,600 on DraftKings. And in New England, playing pretty well. Big news with their running backs that we won't have, it looks like, until perhaps tomorrow morning. Both Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, who, looks like they're kind of maybe going to share the backfield, I think, going forward. Perhaps James White on IR for New England. J.J. Taylor doesn't really seem like they want to use him too much, although he has received 15 carries over the last 2 weeks. But, if one of Harris or Stevenson was out, I think the other one would become a primary play for me. Harris at 6,100, Stevenson at 5,200. If they're both out, I don't anticipate that at all, but you never know. Then, who's ever left for New England, J.J. Taylor, Brandon Bolden would become interesting. And then, Titans side, I'm on Hilliard. If you think the Titans can move the ball here against New England, I mean, I've never seen a team with such cheap options on, we talked about Jets and Houston. Tennessee the same way. Westbrook and Kine at wide receiver joining Chester Rogers and Fitzpatrick. I mean, dudes they probably hadn't even heard of coming into the season. But teams need wide receivers. These guys are going to be on the field. Tannehill's an okay enough quarterback to potentially put up yards and points. It's tough, Bobby. Tennessee, New England. These Tennessee wide receivers, and maybe if you got a read on these guys, let me know, because I don't really know where they're going.
I don't understand how you can play any of these guys, to be perfectly honest. Like I'm
not playing the Tennessee wideouts. No.
I'm not playing Westbrook. I'm not playing any of these guys. Like the biggest news in this game is what's going to happen with these Patriots running backs, because if one of them's out, I think the other one gets a significant usage increase. And then Brandon Bolden on the backside of that becomes in play as well, 150. Jonnu Smith, I think, was questionable. Hunter Henry would get a boost. Hunter Henry's been one of Mac Jones' favorite targets. The Patriots defense, I think, is very interesting. You talked about Hilliard. He's seen 10 targets last week, 8 receptions. He's at 4,600 for the Texans. I think Titans. I'm sorry. He used to be on the Texans. He's just I think he's interesting at 4,600. And I definitely prefer him to the other to Foreman in this situation.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Hilliard potentially going to be a core play for me. Played, I think, 62% of snaps compared to Foreman's like 18%. They clearly don't want to, or at least I wouldn't say clearly, but based on last week, they don't want to use Foreman in the passing game. It looks like they want Hilliard in that role. They'll also give him carries, right? He's not just a scat back. Saw 7 carries last week. So Snyder, your thoughts on Hilliard? Talk me off him, I guess, if you can, because I do like him quite a bit. Don't feel super comfortable with him, but I mean, if you're Tannehill, right, you got to get rid of the ball. You don't trust your receivers. Your tight ends all suck. And Hilliard, you look at his athletic profile, looks fine. He was productive last week, productive as a receiver in college. Seems like he can probably get the job done as a receiver out of the backfield. There's a narrative of Bill Belichick of the Patriots shutting down Tennessee's number one offensive weapon. I don't know who that would be this week other than, I guess, Tannehill, who, we're not playing anyway. So, Snyder, your thoughts here, Tennessee, New England.
Yeah, I just don't really have much interest in this game as a whole. I could see this being like a pretty much like a slog of a game. I mean, I think New England's going to look to get up by 7 to 10 points in this game and just kind of sit on the ball and just get in and out with the W here. I could see it. I mean, the Patriots have given up some good games to running backs throughout the season, but I just think that's a little thin, especially if he's going to see some ownership. I could see him getting up to, 15% isn't much, but I think he'll get into that range. He's a guy I could see getting like 10 to 15 points here. I just don't know if he has the upside for GPPs we're looking for. But that price tag is cheap. I mean, I could see it either way. I kind of like the New England defense, though. I mean, they've had 9 interceptions and 10 sacks in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
They put up some big scores on defense. I'm looking at, they've scored double-digit points the last 5 weeks, and they have 225 balls in there. Great spot for them. I mean, they got injury-riddled Tennessee team coming into New England. It's going to be cold out. New England's going to love the weather. I'm not sure Tennessee even wants to be there with the way their roster is situated right now. I mean, they might be in full tank mode. I mean, Jacoby Myers at 5K. Yeah. Jacoby Myers at 5K. He finally got in the end zone for once, but I just don't think I'm going to be looking to any of these guys, really, skill position wise guys. I think this is going to be just like a pass for me, and maybe, depending on that running back news, there could be one of these Pats running backs could pop open as a really good play. We'll have to watch that going forward as we get the injury news and inactives going forward, but I think it's just mainly the Patriots defense if I'm spinning up this week.
I'm with you, and I'll have more interest in the Patriots defense if I can get one of the two running backs with the other ruled out, right? And then you get that correlation play. And then if that happens, I'll be in on the Patriots defense, 3,900 on DraftKings for them. So they're not cheap, but you could see, I mean, a Patriots shutout seems at least in the cards. And if I can play the running backs left, who's left, I don't care if it's really Harris or Stevenson. If the other guy's ruled out, I love that correlation play. And that would be kind of the only way I would go from that game. But I do like Hilliard as the best play on the Titans side. I'm not going to the wide receivers. I just don't see upside. I don't know where the ball is going to go. And I see just kind of a discombobulated offense coming out from Tennessee. One more early game to talk about, Pittsburgh and the Cincinnati Bengals. Another low total here, 43.5. Bengals favored by 3.5 at home. These teams relatively healthy, at least compared to what we've seen from recent weeks. So you kind of know what to expect from both teams. Listen, especially when you get into November, December, I don't love targeting these AFC North games too much. Divisional games are typically lower scoring. You see a lot of weather, a lot of wind. Generally low scoring games. That is reflected in the total, of course. You do have two, pretty big workhorse running backs here. Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, both going to get likely the vast majority of the running back touches, for their respective teams. Will there be enough meat on the bone? 8,200 for Harris, 7,500 for Mixon. I think that's up for debate. Snyder, we'll go right back to you for this one. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. What do you see here?
Yeah, I think there's a few guys that are interesting in this game. First off, though, the Pittsburgh defense is looking to get a little more stronger and healthier this week as T.J. Watt and Micah Fitzpatrick look to be coming back this week. Joe Hayden's still questionable, but we saw last week Mike Williams hit him over the top without Micah Fitzpatrick in the lineup there. So that'll be a much-needed comeback for them. They're a 3-point favorite here, or 3-point underdog here to the Bengals, which we've seen Joey Burrow kind of look a little sluggish last couple weeks. This could be a bounce back spot for him here. I always like going to Jamar Chase. I mean, he's still getting that workload. I mean, the price has come down a little bit. He's only at 7.3K right now. He's still getting the targets. I mean, he scored a touchdown last week, just didn't do much with his targets last week. Only had 3 catches for 32 yards. But like I said, did find the end zone. I think the big play is still there for Jamar Chase.
Sure.
Definitely like going to him. I mean, T. Higgins, what a brutal game from him last week. I mean, he just killed everybody, especially I think he was like 50, 60% owned in cash games, and he was up there in tournaments. He just buried everybody. I don't think I'm going to be going back to him. Chase Claypool showed a little bit of upside last week. 9 targets, 5 catches, almost had that 100-yard bonus, but ended 7 yards short. Deontay Johnson is the guy that's going to be popular this week, more so like cash games and single entries. But the target share is just unreal. It's still there. He got 13 targets again last week, caught 7 of them. Definitely a good play here. More of a safer guy. I think he's a guy that's going to get probably in the low 20s as a median projection here. It's looking like he's going to be in that 14 to 18% ownership range, which isn't that much. So, I mean, I'm still seeing T. Higgins getting ownership here, and I think that's pretty crazy. I don't know how he can be getting that ownership again. Pat Freiermuth is another guy in that 4K range at tight end. I mean, this guy has just been a stud since they started giving him more workload.
Yeah,
over the last
again. He's my favorite player in this game is Freiermuth. That's what I said about
Ebron's going to miss. Yeah.
Tight end, I mean, Goddard, Gronk, Freiermuth, these guys all look like good plays to me.
Yeah, Freiermuth found the end zone 4 times in his last 4 games. I think he's got really good chance here. That's pretty much it for me here. I don't really like either of these defenses. I mean, you could put them in for GPPs if you want, but I think it's mainly going to be I might go to Joey B here, but I mean, I even looked over Joe Mixon and both the running backs here. I mean, Mixon is still getting that workhorse role. I mean, he had 30 carries last week.
Right. Still
seeing pass game work. Najee Harris is another guy, 8.2K. I think he's going to go a little overlooked this week. I'm seeing him coming in that 5 to 8% ownership range. had a down game last week. Still found the end zone, but I mean the pass game's still there for him. But the whole Steelers as a whole just kind of had a down game last week. But I like some options in this game for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense despite the low total. Man, I just don't. The running backs is kind of where I would want to go, and I just don't love the matchups.
Mixon's a little priced up, but
yeah, Deontay Johnson makes a lot of sense. I mean, just so many targets. It's hard for him not to at least be a decent player, and then he really hasn't shown a tremendous amount of upside, lack of touchdowns, kind of lack of explosive ability, but you never know, one broken tackle and you're running down the sideline for a 50-yard touchdown. You never know. So, yeah, I like the Johnson call. Bobby, your thoughts here? Pittsburgh, Cincinnati.
Yeah, interdivisional game. Don't really target it. I will say on this slate, I do have interest though. Joe Burrow over touchdown prop minus 130, 1.5. I never play Ben Roethlisberger. Hasn't had a ceiling all year, but in this with like how the slate's broken down and what we have for quarterbacks at 5,200, like I don't mind Ben. I like Deontay. I like Claypool. Najee had his like 20 catch game. He had like just a huge game versus Cincy previously, but Deontay Johnson didn't play in that game. Well, in their first meeting, so that's something to take consideration of because Deontay's going to eat into a lot of those short 8-out targets. I like CJ Uzoma here at 3,400. I think he's interesting. I know a lot of people are on Freiermuth. Freiermuth, I think, is a great play. But I like CJ and Burrow stacks. Higgins, maybe there's flop lag. It's not showing it. The higher you go up in stakes, though, I think there will be. I don't mind T. Higgins getting back on the train there. Like, it's just – this isn't the greatest game. The total is, 45? But a lot of these games aren't great. So I don't mind pulling from this game specifically for tournaments this week.
Yeah, not a game I would recommend game stacking necessarily, but if you want to pick out a piece or two from either team, like you mentioned, low total, Bobby, 43.5 between the Steelers and the Bengals. I have no problem with it, but I'm not going crazy on this one. That's the last of the early games. Let's jump to the afternoon games. Again, please hit the like, hit the subscribe. We really do appreciate you watching, listening, whatever it may be. And hit that subscribe button. That will give you notifications every time we come online, which is often for free content. And, of course, feel free to join us at runpeersports.com. You can use promo code RPSHeater25. If that doesn't work, DM me. I'll get back to you on what will. Not the Clippers. Basketball mode over here. The Chargers. I see LAC, and it's hard for me not to say the Clippers, but the LA Chargers and the Denver Broncos here in Denver. Good weather here, so don't worry about that for this game. 47 total. Actually, pretty high for this slate. Chargers 2.5-point favorites coming into Denver. Broncos typically play pretty well here. Denver will see this week. Obviously, Justin Herbert and this Chargers offense, tremendous upside each and every week. You don't always see it, but Herbert can put up a lot of points in a hurry when he's rolling. I think that certainly applies to this game. You've got Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Obviously, Austin Eckler had the 40-plus fantasy point game. I think that's kind of an outlier game for Eckler, but yeah, who knows? He's obviously a big part of that offense. From the Denver side, obviously you've got Bridgewater, who, I think it's safe to say he's just not a high upside type quarterback himself and does limit the offense around him to some degree, but his guys that he's thrown to are pretty cheap. Jerry Jeudy, 5,500. Cortland Sutton, 5,400. We've got Tim Patrick, who got the big contract at 4,800. So they've got a pretty clear top three wide receiver set there, none of whom are over 5,500. And then you've got kind of the two-headed Denver Broncos running back attack, Melvin Gordon and rookie Javonte Williams, who has been very, very efficient. If you look at some of the advanced rushing metrics, tackles broken, yards after contact, that type of thing, Williams rates out extremely highly in those metrics. He looks like a future round one, season long pick at running back to me once he's kind of free of Gordon. Not the case this game. Gordon healthy, good to go. Gordon 5,300 on DraftKings. Williams 5,200. I'll be surprised if there's not players in this game who don't have big games, Snyder, but a little bit difficult to identify who they're going to be at their price point. So maybe a game you could potentially game stack, right, and hope to pick the right ones. But do you see anything that really stands out to you here in terms of what you're looking at for your core plays, core lineups, anything like that?
Yeah, I talked about how I hope the Chargers were going to give Austin Eckler like more of a role that he had seen more in towards the start of the season, and he did. He got 6 catches last week. I mean, he saw more work than he had in the previous games. He ended up getting inside the box 4 times. I like him here again. I don't really like attacking guys in Denver. It's just kind of a thing. I think Denver defense usually plays better at home. And they're coming off a bye week as well. Eckler's price up there, 8.4K, is not cheap, but he's going to be low owned, so I don't mind going there. Personally, I think Javonte Williams is a stud, and I kind of wish they'd just hand the reins over to him and just let old Dusty Gordon go to the wayside. But Gordon's got a revenge game here. They're probably going to want to get him some usage here too, so I think that just scraps both of them, so I won't be looking at either of them this week. Keenan Allen, just been unreal. I mean, targets, double-digit targets in 4 or 5 straight games. He had 9 catches, over 100 yards last week. That's just what he's going to do. He's going to be a really consistent, popular play this week. 7.4K is a fair price tag for him. I expect him to catch 7 to 9 more balls this week, possibly hit that 100-yard bonus again. I could see going to him for sure. I think he's going to be more of a popular cash-type play. I could see his ownership hitting 10 up to 20% or even higher than that. Mike Williams is definitely the deep threat that we could take shots on him and some GPPs. He showed his upside again last week with that long catch. Jerry Jeudy, I think he's the best Broncos receiver. I've been on him somewhat throughout his early career. I think he's a good play this week. I could see myself going there in some GPPs. He's had 8 targets and 9 targets in the last 2 games. He just needs to find that end zone to really break out. So that's mainly where I'm looking at. I mean, I always could get talked into playing some Noah Fant. He's in that 4K range like the other guys we have in that range. I think he's going to be the lower owned of that range. I'm not seeing him get much ownership at all, really. So I could go there. I don't like Jared Cook. I wish they'd play Donald Parham more. I think he's way better than Cook, but they keep putting his dusty ass out there. But mainly it's just some one-offs for me in this game for the most part.
Yeah, that makes sense. Bobby, your thoughts here, Chargers and Broncos?
Yeah, really like Herbert's TD prop. Love Keenan Allen in this spot. I think he's a smash play. Mike Williams is another one. He hasn't got going, but I could see him getting going here. And then I don't mind running it back with the Judys, Cortland Suttons. They're cheap. They're high upside guys. You can even play Bridgewater with them. Like, I don't mind Bridgewater stacks and running it back like a Keenan Allen or Austin Eckler. Like you hit on the top, DC. I think this game is interesting to stack both ways.
Yeah, I don't mind taking a shot here on a Javonte Williams. Like, we do see injuries at the running back position all the time. He seems like a reasonable play to me anyway at 5,200, given what he's doing and given a full workload. I mean, the Chargers' run defense has been atrocious all year long. He could get there even if Gordon stays healthy, right? He could still score 2 touchdowns and be super efficient. I think that's certainly in play. And then, even if you don't run that good, even if like you could get the total, I wouldn't even call it a luck box, but just hit the nuts, right? Where Gordon goes down in the first quarter and all of a sudden you've got Javonte Williams playing 100% of snaps in a great matchup, great player, and you're off to the races. So I do like that call a little bit. I mean, nobody's going to play Williams or Gordon. I prefer Williams as a younger player, the more explosive player, but in a giant tournament, why not? I mean, he'll probably get you 10 plus fantasy points anyway in this matchup. and with upside for a lot more if things really break his way. So Javonte Williams, I think, is kind of the sneaky play, at least from where I'm sitting in terms
of
revenge
for Melvin.
What's that?
A little revenge for Melvin.
True. Either one. I definitely would not play both, but
I like the call.
You want to play either one. I prefer Javonte, but yeah, certainly Melvin Gordon could have a big game as well. Two more games to talk about, both really good ones in my opinion. The Rams and the Green Bay Packers, two strong teams here. Rams 2-point favorites going into Lambeau. I'm a little bit surprised by that line too, to be honest, with the Packers at home here in the cold. You got the Rams going on the road. Give me the Packers money line plus 110 on that one. But in terms of DFS, which is obviously what we're talking here, you guys kind of know the deal with these two teams. The only real significant news that we're waiting on is Aaron Jones missed last week with the knee injury. They said it was going to be a 1 to 2 week injury. He's practiced in limited fashion 3 days in a row. Big game. I kind of expect him to be in there, but again, just I don't have any inside information or anything like that. AJ Dillon got the start last week. He was solid. Clearly not the same. At least I played AJ Dillon. Just watching the game, he does not have the same type of wiggle, same type of nice hips that Aaron Jones has. But if Jones is out, it's still going to be a lot of Dillon. So 75% of the snaps, he's solid. Darrell Henderson's been a little bit disappointing to me, and I think a lot of people this week just hasn't been that explosive. I've been waiting for it. It hasn't really come for Darrell Henderson. I don't think he's had a 100-yard game on the ground in like 20 games or something like that, a lot of which are him as very much the primary back in that offense. Wide receivers, bearing the lead a little bit, maybe Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, just tremendous talents, having tremendous years. Adams probably will see a lot of Jalen Ramsey here. How much that matters, I think, is up for debate with a guy like Devontae Adams, who just seems to be open all the time. Doesn't matter really who's guarding him, but that's Adams. And then Kupp, 9,600 on DraftKings. That's a tough price to pay for me with Cooper Kupp, but man, has he been excellent this year. Obviously, Robert Woods out. You've seen guys like Van Jefferson. You've got Odell Beckham, who was signed. Only saw 3 targets in his debut, but presumably with 2 weeks to work after that signing, maybe incorporated more here. He's 5K on DraftKings. So a lot of kind of moving parts here, Snyder, but also a lot of ways you can go. What do you see between the Rams and the Packers here?
Yeah, this is an interesting game here. It looks like it's going to be pretty cold here this week. Where they got the wind chill's going to be in that 24, 25 Fahrenheit range. The wind's going to be up a little bit too. I'm seeing 15 to 17 mile per hour winds, so that's interesting to keep an eye on as we going forward. I'm going to keep an eye on this injury news for AJ Dillon. If he's the lone back, I don't mind going to him if Aaron Jones is ruled out. But it looks like Aaron Jones is going to play, and I don't know how much. I think it's going to be more of like a 50-50 backfield. If he does play, I don't see him putting him out there for a full workload. Cooper Kupp is priced up really high here, and I don't know if I can pay that price tag for him in this type of a game. I actually kind of think this is going to be a more of a slower type game here. 46, 47 point total here. I don't really think it's going to be that big of a shootout here personally, but I think it's going to be more of neither of these coaches are going to be looking to take too many big shots early. They're just going to kind of sit back and trade punches early in this game, I think. So I think I'm off Cooper Kupp. Devontae Adams is going to see a lot of Ramsey this week, and I don't think I'm actively looking to spend that money on him. I'd rather spend it elsewhere. I really like the next game we're going to talk about more just as a sneak peek, but I think Van Jefferson's a better play than Odell Beckham. I think he's the better player at this point in their career. I kind of think OBJ's a little washed up, but it is what it is. Van Jefferson's been solid. I think I could see him having a solid game here. 7 targets in his last 3 games. I think he's got good workload for that 4.9 price tag. And MVS kind of had his breakout game last week. First time he's seen 10 targets as far as I could go back. I think he's a good play here at 4.1K. If Ramsey does shadow Devontae and kind of shut him down, I could see Rodgers turn into MVS quite a bit in this game. Both tight ends are fine. I mean, Mercedes Lewis is a little old and dusty. I don't think I could really go there. And Josiah, I'm not going to go there either. Yeah. I mean, Higbee's in that 4K tight end range as well, like some of those other guys. I think Higbee's got a solid upside to get you possibly 15 points or so in this game. But, I mean, this game is kind of – I'm just not really too interested in this game. The Packers have had a pretty good rush defense, which kind of worries me a little bit with Henderson, but I could see the play for Henderson for sure. He's under 6K now. I think that's a good price tag for him, but I'm just not sure how much I'm going to have of this game because I do really like the next game that we're going to get to more so.
Yeah, I'm mostly fading this game as well, Bobby. Davante Adams couldn't go off, but, like, the points he got against the Vikings were just, like, completely busted coverages for the most part. I think the Rams will have a pretty decent plan for him. They have one of the best cornerbacks to stick on him. So maybe they slow him down. And then Kupp at 9,600 for a game that I don't think, I mean, we've seen this Rams offense slow down a little bit, especially with the Woods injury. I just don't trust this game to be a complete shootout. So I'm mostly off it. Bobby, your thoughts here, Rams and Packers?
I'm more on the Rams side. If no one's going to pay for Cooper Kupp, like this slate, there's not a ton to – it's Cooper Kupp, McCaffrey, not a lot of value at running back. I don't mind getting up to Cooper Kupp even at that tag. Odell and Van Jefferson, like I think Van is the better play. Don't get me wrong. I think he's the better play. If he's going to be higher owned, like I can play some Odell. Also don't mind Higbee. Like I just don't think anyone's going to play Higbee. And he's like in that range where everyone's going to play the Gronkowskis and the Goddards. So I think I have interests more on the Rams side. A.J. Dillon, if he was to end up being the only running back in the Green Bay situation, which I don't think he will be. I think Adam Jones will play. Like he practiced pretty much all week limited. Like it seems like he will play. I would have interest in AJ if Adam sat. If not, like just kind of rules out pretty much anything. I always play Devontae, so I don't mind going there. Ramsey coverage. I think he put up like 23 fantasy points versus Ramsey last week. I mean, not last week, last time they played. So Devontae would be the only one I'd have like significant interest in or just like relative interest from the Green Bay side.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Sounds like a game we're all a little bit lukewarm on despite two pretty strong teams. It should be a great game to watch. But from a fantasy perspective, I can see some disappointing scores just because all these guys are so expensive, or especially the main guys that you would want in Davante Adams and Cooper Kupp. Last game of the slate that we'll talk about. Again, thanks for watching and listening, everybody. We really do appreciate it. Minnesota and the Minnesota Vikings, San Francisco 49ers. Another high total game, 49.5. 49ers favored by 3. We've seen a couple giant games from my guy Justin Jefferson, who's been tremendous. He's just crazy good. Vikings seem committed to throwing him more targets, which seems like a pretty damn good idea given what this guy produces anytime you give him any types of targets. So 8,300 for Jefferson. He seems to go low owned a lot. He's interesting to me. San Francisco, pretty strong defense, especially on the rush side. So I do see Minnesota, kind of taken back to the air with Cousins, Jefferson, Thielen. On the other side, obviously you have Deebo Samuel, who's very expensive, 7,900, kind of a fade for me. And then I do like Brandon Ayuk, who got off to a terrible start this year, but has been incorporated more and more recently, playing 90+% of the snaps last couple of weeks. So he's interesting. Obviously, you've got running back news to watch with San Francisco. They do prefer to run the ball. We'll see if Elijah Mitchell can return, Bobby. But yeah, a lot of interesting pieces on both sides.
Yeah, I would rather Elijah Mitchell not return, so you go to Jeff Wilson. I think both of these teams want to run the ball, which makes it kind of a difficult game to stack, even though it seems like the game like we'd most want to stack on the slate or like right around it, like the second or third. So, yeah, don't mind Justin Jefferson, absolutely torching defenses. Adam Thielen last week, same thing. Like the issue is like trying to put the stack together with Kirk. they can all get there, and then Kirk, it just doesn't work out for whatever reason. Dalvin Cook, like, if you're stepping down from McCaffrey, I think it's a good play. Other side, Garoppolo, Debo, Kittle, like that side makes sense. Garoppolo has really good passing TD prop. His yardage looks good. The only thing is they just want to run the football. That's like the main issue. I don't mind Kittle. I prefer Debo to Ayuk. I know Ayuk's kind of getting steam throughout the industry. Ayuk's been better than what he's been in throughout the year. Just prefer Debo. I know there's a significant price difference, but yeah, I'm on both sides of this game. That's pretty much my analysis. My issue is just trying to figure out are they just going to run are they both going to try to establish it, and then it's just like, did I really want to stack this game?
Yeah, I had to take a little a pee break there, but the Vikings seem like they are willing to air it out a little bit. It seems like they've made a little bit of a philosophical change to me. Not that, listen, if Dalvin Cook's going early and, he still had 22 carries last week, but I do think Snyder, they're kind of committed to this Justin Jefferson thing, which they should be. And they talked about it, before 2 weeks ago. And they've done it. And I don't know. Justin Jefferson's just so good. And then you got, Thielen underneath too is still a very, very strong wide receiver. You got Dalvin Cook, who you have to commit, bodies to and resources to as a defense. So this Vikings team seems really balanced right now, and they should be a hard offense to stop, right? I mean, Cousins, for all the hate he gets, this guy's got a 21-2 touchdown to interception ratio, completing almost 70% of his passes. I mean, look at the Vikings. I mean, their last four games, they put up, 34, 27, 31, 34 points in four of the last five. Should be pretty good weather in San Francisco. So I kind of got faith in this Vikings offense right now. I'm sure it'll end up biting me as a, somewhat of a Vikings fan, but
what if the Vikings get out to a lead?
What's that?
What if the Vikings get out to a lead?
The biggest thing that kind of worries me in this game is that Kirk Cousins isn't playing that noon or whatever. I mean, he's got that kind of some horrible stats when he gets out of that early time.
I like Cousins when he's at home, when he's in a dome, when he's at noon.
He needs everything to be perfect for him, Kirk.
Yeah, it does.
But, I mean, we've got a pretty good total here. I mean, it's 49 points. Both of these defenses have been pretty good against the run lately. I mean, they've been giving up a lot of yards through the air. I mean, they've been giving up some big games to passing games, both sides here. I mean, I like attacking. I like Jimmy G best. I like the price savings. You get $600 off of Kirk Cousins. So I'm mainly looking to stack up Jimmy G here. I like Debo. I mean, Debo had quite the wild game last week. Only had one catch for 15 yards, but he did have like 8 carries for like 80 yards and a touchdown. So he got there in a weird way. I mean, I look for him to get back on board to the elite passing game that he had been seeing lately. I mean, he's just kind of like Cooper Kupp light, I think. I mean, with the usage and everything he's seen this year. So I definitely like Debo. I do like the call you had on Ayuk. I mean, he was the guy I was looking at targeting a lot coming into this year, like best ball wise and such. I think he's got great talent, and he's finally starting to get more incorporated into this offense the last 3 or 4 weeks. So I definitely like that call there. I mean, all these guys, I'm not seeing much ownership at all coming in on this game at all. I mean, you got Justin Jefferson under 10%. I mean, Justin Jefferson is just, I think he's on that tier 1. Like, he's right up there with Devontae Adams and all those guys. I mean, he's just unreal is what he's been doing. I mean, he had 169 yards and 2 touchdowns last week.
Good game stack this one. I mean, you got Cousins is cheap, relatively cheap. Did he? I mean,
and we got that value at running back. We got value at tight end.
Is going to be relatively under-owned.
I think he's going to be at like 6 to 9. Yeah, I think Thielen's going to be at like 3 to 5%, and I think Jefferson's going to come in 6 to 9.
Look at Thielen last 5 weeks. Targets 10, 7, 7, 9, 13, averaging almost 10 targets a game over the last 5 games. He can get in the end zone. He's got 8 touchdowns on the year. He's a proven touchdown scorer.
Yeah, he scored 4 in the last 5. I mean, he's just that consistent guy who's just going to bring his lunch pail to work and get you 15 to 20 points every game, I think. So I definitely like. I mean, you could stack this game up a lot of ways. I think is I do feel the rush defenses are maybe better than expected, and the pass defenses have just been exploded a lot this year.
Especially the Niners, I think, have a good chance of shutting down Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
And unlike in years past, it seems like the Vikings are willing to say, all right, it seems like they recognize it's like we have maybe the best wide receiver in the NFL. I mean, Jefferson is in that conversation. What quarterback that we trust, and then Adam Thielen's tremendous too. So it seems like they're more willing than in years past in this Mike Zimmer era to say, all right, we'll throw the ball if we can't get a ton of stuff going on the ground. So, but I see you're shaking your head a little bit, Bobby. You're just a little hesitant on trusting the Vikings. I get it. I really do get it.
No, I get it. I have no issue with it, especially on the slate. Like if it was a different slate, like I'd probably not be like all over this game just because hopefully there'd be better 50-point totals that with two teams that don't want to run the ball so much. But at the low ownership, like I don't mind the secondary stacks of Justin Jefferson and Debo when no one's going to play those guys, or Thielen and Debo. Or
we still got Kittle there too. He's just coming back from injury. He's found the end zone in all 3 games coming back. I like Kittle. I think Kittle's going to be more so owned on FanDuel. He looks pretty cheap over there. He's going to fit the optimal, I think, on FanDuel. But on DraftKings, I think he's going to be under 10%. And we do have Conklin there, too, at 3.7K is going to be pretty low owned, too, and he's been solid.
Yeah, I'll say this, too. You got to check California weather. Usually don't worry about it. But San Francisco, you got to worry a little bit, right? It can be cold and windy there. Not tomorrow. Scheduled to be or predicted to be 65, sunny, and 7-mile-per-hour winds in San Francisco. So that's about as good of weather as you're ever going to get in San Francisco, especially in late November. So passing games, they're full go here, right? Or could be a full go rather. So yeah, I'm in on the passing attacks here. Makes me a little nervous, Garoppolo versus Cousins, but it's not a slate where there are guaranteed spots. So
yeah, Jimmy G hasn't really thrown that much the last couple of weeks. He's been under 200 yards the last 2 weeks, but I mean, I think he's got that upside like we've seen a few times this year. But
they won 30-10 last week. They've controlled a lot of games. But listen, if Cousins, Thielen, Jefferson, if they're moving the ball, putting up points, I think you'll see. It's not like the Vikings defense is all that great, honestly. So you'll see. I think you'll see Garoppolo. He can put up numbers, I think, if he has to. Ayuk is my favorite there. 7,900 for Samuel. I don't mind him, but in a shootout, I'll take the Ayuk, kind of a traditional down the field type wide receiver. And maybe we see something like a Packers-Vikings game last week, which obviously was the kind of the key to success. So, Bobby, final thoughts on Vikings, 49ers, or anything else on this slate?
Yeah, the slate's not the greatest. I think the 49ers, Vikings secondary correlations I'd probably be more interested in. Yeah, that's it. Looking forward to having a great week 12. Thanks for hopping on, guys.
Absolutely. Snyder, final thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to this slate. I mean, it's not the prettiest, but I think this is a good spot for us in GPPs where we can get some good ownership on guys. We're not going to have the super chalky guys that we have in the past. Like last week, we saw that huge ownership on like guys like Michael Gallup and stuff. But I think ownership's going to be more spread out this week, and we've got a few interesting spots I think for GPPs and some pretty dusty games as well. But it should be still fun. I mean, it's still the NFL, and we got to count down these weeks. We don't got many left, so we got to enjoy it while we got it. Absolutely.
Yeah, that'll do it for the Week 12 Millie Maker Roundtable. Thanks for tuning in, as always, for this free show. Of course, subs. Thanks for tuning in, as always. We'll be back same time, same place next week. For Bobby, for Snyder, I'm DC. Thanks for watching. We'll check you next time.